Hello everyone, and welcome. Sometimes, we think we know a lot about health awareness and about the biological nature of our bodies as humans, but sadly, with the digital revolution taking over our lives, simple ideas that we share on social media are quickly becoming accepted as facts. Not only that, but they're being treated as reliable sources, and people start to build scientific rules on them that have no basis in truth. This has led to the spread of rumors and lies that their promoters claim are purely scientific, but science has nothing to do with them. And among the most common rumors that we take for granted in our lives are the rumors and myths related to the human body. Welcome. But before we start, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get our videos right away. Chewing gum has always been a helpful way for many people to feel less stressed. It also helps them feel more confident and comfortable. But once we're done chewing, it's important to find the nearest trash can to throw it away. We shouldn't just toss it on the ground or leave it on a bench where someone might sit on it and get annoyed. Sometimes someone might even swallow the gum itself instead of throwing it away. It's a common belief that when we swallow gum, it goes down and sticks to your stomach, staying there for many years and possibly causing serious health problems. Some people say 7 years and others say 15 years, but this is completely false. It's true that gum isn't digestible because stomach acid can't break down its parts like other food particles, but it moves along with the rest of the food until it passes out with waste. In our minds, there's a strong link between healthy teeth and a super bright white color. So the brighter the smile, the more we think the person with that smile has really healthy teeth. But naturally, teeth aren't really white. Even though things like tea, coffee, and smoking clearly make teeth yellow, even if someone doesn't smoke, drink coffee, or drink tea, that doesn't mean their teeth are naturally supposed to be white. Those super white teeth you see are not natural at all. Marketers use this idea to sell their teeth whitening products. But even so, that super bright white you see in teeth whitening ads can only be achieved through whitening procedures, which often cause the removal of the enamel layer that protects teeth from breaking and getting weak. When we were kids, our parents always warned us to watch TV from a distance. They said if we got too close, our eyesight would get worse and our eyes would get hurt. We grew up with this idea, and it became a common belief that we passed down to the next generations. But actually, it's just eye strain from focusing too hard. This happens when you focus on something for a long time, whether it's a TV or anything else. This effect is really clear when we watch TV or a phone in the dark. It's the intense focus on the light coming from the screen that causes eye strain. But this strain doesn't make your eyesight permanently worse at all. And by the way, carrots don't improve your eyesight. Carrots have vitamin A. Vitamin A helps your vision, but it acts like a shield that protects your eyesight. It doesn't make it stronger or better. So if you need glasses, eating a few carrots won't make your vision perfect again. One of the most common myths is that when you crack your knuckles, you'll get arthritis in your joints in the long run. And anyone who cracks their knuckles without thinking has developed inner fears that when they get a little older, they might not be able to move their joints smoothly, and they'll feel helpless and weak. And to this day, no studies have been done that prove there's a connection between cracking knuckles and getting inflammation in your spine and joints. In fact, a famous doctor named Donald Unger said he cracked the knuckles of his left hand for 50 years, but not his right hand. And when he had checkups after he got older and compared his right hand and his left hand, there was no difference between the two. For over a century, fingerprints have been a key part of how detectives solve crimes. This is because people generally believe that everyone in the world has a unique fingerprint, different from everyone else. The idea of fingerprints first came from the Scottish physicist Henry Faulds in 1888. He wrote a scientific paper saying that every person on Earth has their own unique fingerprint. But if we look at this more closely, there's no way to be sure that your fingerprint won't match someone who is alive, or has lived, or will live in the future. Even though fingerprints are indeed very, very unique and very different among people, in 2005, Simon Cole, a crime expert at the University of California, published a study. In it, he pointed out 22 false facts about fingerprints. He stressed that it's important to tell people that fingerprints are not necessarily unique to one person. Someone could find themselves involved in a crime, even if they're innocent, just because their fingerprint matches the real criminals. In 1940, a geneticist named Alfred Sturtevant published a study where he said that the ability to roll your tongue into a tube shape mostly depends on a gene. So, if both parents can roll their tongues like this, when they have kids, their children will also be able to roll their tongues the same way. Then, 12 years later, another geneticist named Philip Matlock did his own study. He gathered 33 sets of identical twins and found that in 7 of these sets, one twin could roll their tongue, but the other couldn't. This was true even though they were identical twins. This showed him that the ability to roll your tongue doesn't depend on a gene, like Alfred said 12 years earlier. If you asked anyone on the street how many senses a human has, the answer would probably be 5 senses. And it's not their fault. That's what we've been taught since we first started school. And this goes way back to 350 BC, thanks to the philosopher Aristotle. We've known for a long time that humans have the senses of smell, taste, sight, touch, and hearing. But what's more realistic and accurate is that these 5 senses are just a small part of the senses a human has. For example, you have the sense of balance and the sense of where any body part is. Even without seeing it, that's a sense. And our feeling of heat is a sense. And our feeling of movement and the passage of time is also a sense, and many other senses, through which we perceive the world around us with more than the 5 commonly known senses. One of the myths that people talk about as something strange is that head hair and nails keep growing after a person dies. The history of this myth goes back to 1929. That's when the writer Eric Remarque wrote about it in his novel All Quiet on the Western Front. After the novel was widely published, people started sharing this idea, and the novel became a reference for them. They completely believed the idea that when a person dies, everything in them stops working, both functionally and biologically, except for hair and nail growth. What disproves this idea from its very foundation is that as soon as a person dies, cells stop growing. This means it's impossible for hair and nails to grow without cell renewal in the first place. It's all just an optical illusion because the shrinking of the human body after death makes it seem to the observer that after a while, their hair has grown longer and their nails have grown longer too, but their actual length remained constant the whole time. Feeling cold is simply your body losing heat. And one of the common myths about losing heat is that most of your body heat escapes through your head. This idea first came about in 1950 when the American military was doing a study to see how frostbite and cold affected soldiers. They started by dressing their soldiers in special Arctic gear designed to help them deal with the freezing conditions around them. But even with all that gear, the soldiers were still freezing. So the researchers thought that the volunteer soldiers were losing heat through their heads because they had covered every part of their bodies except their heads. So they figured their heads must have been where all the heat was escaping. Then, in 2008, at the University of British Columbia, they gathered a group of volunteers and had them get into a swimming pool where the water was 16 degrees Celsius, about 61 degrees Fahrenheit. One group had their heads fully underwater, while the other group only had the water up to their necks. The result was that the group whose heads were underwater lost 11% more heat than the other group. This is because the heat from your head only makes up about 7% of your total body heat. So it's not your head that's losing most of your body heat. Instead, it's just the heat that was already in your head to begin with. And that's it, we're done. Who made it this far? Everyone who did, you're the best. So, give us a like before you go, so we know how many of you made it to the end. And don't forget, if you have a suggestion for an episode, write it in the comments. Bye.